ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me apologize for the absence of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Housing and Environment, Veronica Belgrave, who could not make it, and I've been asked in her stead to bring some remarks on behalf of the Ministry of Housing and Environment. First off, I do not have a presentation, so you're contended to, or you have to contend to looking at me instead for the next few minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome this opportunity to address you at this session of the Capacity Building of Caribbean Private Sector Environmental and Energy Management Capabilities. Over the years, man's relationship with the environment has evolved from a codependent one to an ever-increasing mastery over nature, leading to the industrial age synonymous with rapid material-intensive growth. Concurrent with this, ongoing extensive developments in information technology and the expansion of global markets have put added pressures upon the environment. These developments have impacted negatively on the environment, of course, and have resulted in a growing global concern for the environment. Of these concerns, perhaps the one that stands out most is climate change, as we have heard from other speakers, not merely because of its adverse impacts, but its close relationship with energy and energy use. Climate change has now become to be globally recognized as a single environmental issue of the 21st century that poses unprecedented threats to mankind. The fact that it is not confined to any one sector but has cross-sectoral implications, including those related to socioeconomic well-being, such as the potential to undermine sustainable development efforts, reduction of poverty, and sustained economic growth, places this issue in a unique position in the global context. It means, therefore, that traditional approaches to address global environmental issues have often been found in sectoral approaches such as those related to wetlands or waste management. Such approaches, however, are clearly not applicable to a complex problem as climate change, which transcends biophysical impacts. While international negotiations continue in an effort to arrive at ways to address this issue, local action must of necessity be designed to cater for all sectors in a complementary and holistic manner. Global warming and climate change, as we have heard from other speakers, is attributed to the buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, largely as a result of the combustion of fossil fuels for energy, and which acts as a heat trap leading to the warming of the earth and changes in the climate. Small island developing states like the islands of this region are highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change due to an interplay of a variety of factors, among these being size, geographical dispersion, fragility of ecosystems, isolation from markets, vulnerability to exogenous economic and financial shocks, lack of natural, human, and technological resources, technical capacity, heavy dependence on imports, and their limited ability to reap the benefits of economies of scale. We in Trinidad and Tobago are already experiencing climate variability, as has been mentioned, such as the intensity of the dry season, which has affected water availability and agricultural production. Within recent years, we have also experienced short, intense episodes of rain resulting in severe flooding, land slippage, and mudslides, with the associated loss and damage to property and lives. This associated loss and agricultural production have implications for food security, water availability, and the overall economic development of Trinidad and Tobago. As a country with significant industries such as iron and steel, methanol, and cement production, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has recognized its contribution to the production of greenhouse gases, albeit minuscule in the global context, and its effect on global warming and climate change. Trinidad and Tobago is nonetheless committed to playing its part as a responsible member of the global community by continuing efforts geared towards pursuing policy and initiatives to increase the use of new and innovative technologies that have lower levels of greenhouse gas emissions, encouraging the use of clean energy technology, such as natural gas technology and clean production technology, adopting more energy-efficient technologies and practices, and encouraging the use of renewable energies that have zero emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to crafting a comprehensive approach to addressing these environmental issues. In this regard, and from a policy perspective, a renewable energy policy is now being developed by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, and a draft climate change policy is now being finalized by the Ministry of Housing and Environment. It is in this context that I would like to focus my remarks, given the theme of the meeting. Permit me, therefore, to outline some of the provisions of the draft climate change policy and other initiatives being undertaken. The policy seeks to address both mitigation, or the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as has been alluded by Mr. Ramjohn, and adaptation, or coping mechanisms for the adverse impacts of climate change. In respect of mitigation, the policy provides for the increased use of renewable energy, such as solar and wind, by inter alia, developing a renewable energy policy and standards, as has been mentioned, developing suitable fiscal incentives and domestic use and sale to the national grid, replacing conventional street lighting and public lighting with solar-powered light-emitting diodes as far as is feasible, and utilizing a phased approach through routine maintenance programs. To this end, several fiscal incentives have already been outlined in the 2011 budget statement, including tax credits and wear and tear allowances on renewable energy equipment related to solar and wind energy. Increase energy efficiency in commercial and residential buildings by developing a green building code that will seek to maximize renewable energy and energy efficiency, and we heard some of that already this morning, formulating and adopting energy efficiency standards. Increase the use of alternative fuels and fuel switching in the transportation sector by maximizing the use of compressed natural gas as a vehicle fuel and the provision of suitable fiscal incentives for vehicle conversion for private owners and mandatory conversion for state-owned and public vehicles such as buses and taxis. And I'm pleased to recognize that the EMA has already converted its vehicles to CNG. Also included in this initiative is the importing of hybrid vehicles and fuel cell vehicles, improving public transport efficiency, and examining the potential and feasibility of a percentage replacement of traditional fuels by biofuels only for domestic production and consumption. Again, several fiscal initiatives have been outlined in the 2011 budget statement, including tax credits and the removal of import duty on CNG equipment. Increase the use of cleaner technology in all greenhouse gas emitting sectors by instituting mandatory inventorying, reporting, and auditing of greenhouse gas emissions from all sectors to monitor emission trends and quantities, developing regulatory approaches and technology standards, exploring the feasibility and developing cap-and-trade regimes within and across emitting sectors in the local scenario, retrofitting emitting sectors with cleaner technologies, providing fiscal incentives and disincentives for the use of cleaner technology. Maximize the use of the carbon market by strengthening institutional capacity to participate in the clean development mechanism of the Kyoto Protocol, as has been alluded to in an earlier presentation, and developing incentives for participation in a domestic cap-and-trade regime. Enhance research and development by encouraging research and development in the maximization of renewable energy resources such as solar, wind, oceans, and tides through the development of incentives and institutional arrangements for multipartite involvement, including private sector, academia, government, and non-governmental organizations. Encouraging the development and manufacturing of raw materials for renewable energy technologies, such as fuel cells and solar cells, through the formulation of incentives to involve private sector investment. Exploring new technologies for carbon sequestration through cooperating with the international community to develop carbon capture and storage technology in geological formations, utilizing the already abundant experience in Trinidad and Tobago in using carbon dioxide for enhanced oil recovery, as we had heard from an earlier speaker. And enhance natural carbon sinks by conserving forests and protecting natural systems that contribute to carbon sequestration. In this regard, a revised forest policy and protected areas policy are also being finalized. Additionally, the government has embarked on the development of a carbon reduction strategy aimed at the transportation, industrial, and power generation sectors. Such a strategy is expected to involve an analysis of the policy and legislative implications relevant to these sectors with a view to arriving at recommendations for implementation of identified strategies, recognizing that implementation of actions would need to take into account the fact that no one technology can be universally applied and that the industrial sector in Trinidad and Tobago is largely driven by the private sector. The strategy would therefore necessarily have to be comprised of a combination of incentives, policy, and legal approaches. Again, the development of this strategy would involve consultations with relevant stakeholders. Feasibility of cap-and-trade schemes. The feasibility of cap-and-trade schemes for various emitting sectors will also be examined with a view to stimulating a domestic